Alex Parker never expected one evening to hit him so hard. It began like any normal night in his small Portland apartment, but something inside him felt unusually heavy. It wasn't one single problem, it was everything piling up, quietly and slowly, until he reached a breaking point. His job had been stressful for months. His recent breakup left him feeling empty rather than angry, and the silence of his home made every thought louder. He tried switching on the TV, scrolling through his phone, even making dinner, but nothing distracted him. The loneliness he had ignored for years had finally caught up. He wasn't someone who asked for help. People knew him as calm, dependable, always in control. But that night, even breathing felt difficult. As he stood near his window, watching cars pass through the misty evening rain, a single name came to his mind: Emily Rivers. The moment he thought of her, the weight on his chest shifted, not vanishing, but loosening just enough for him to breathe again. Emily had been in his life for years, a quiet constant he never fully appreciated. She lived across town in a warm little house that always smelled like fresh coffee whenever he visited. Emily had a gift for making people feel seen. She listened with her full attention, asked thoughtful questions, and spoke with a softness that made even cold days feel warm. Alex remembered all the times she had helped him without realizing it, simply by being there. And suddenly, he felt a pull strong, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. He tried to talk himself out of it. It was late. He shouldn't show up without warning. He should just sleep and deal with his feelings tomorrow. But every time he tried to settle down, the same thought returned. I need someone, and I know exactly who. The idea wasn't dramatic. It felt natural, almost obvious, like something he should have realized years ago. Finally, he grabbed his jacket and keys and stepped outside. The air was cold and crisp, the kind of night where the sky smelled like rain and the streets felt too quiet. He drove without music, letting the steady sound of the engine calm him. Halfway there, doubt crept in. Maybe she was asleep. Maybe he shouldn't involve her in his problems. But he kept going, because something deeper inside him said this wasn't a mistake. When he reached her house, his heart beat faster than it had all day. The warm light glowing behind her curtains made the place look safe, comforting exactly what he needed but didn't want to admit. He walked up the steps, paused, and took a breath. His hand shook slightly as he lifted it to knock. Before he touched the door. It opened. Emily stood there in a soft gray sweater, her brown hair slightly messy, as though she had been reading or working on something. The surprise on her face lasted only a second before her eyes softened with concern. She didn't ask why he was there at midnight. She simply looked at him as if she already knew something was wrong. "Alex," she said gently, "what happened?" Her voice almost broke him. It wasn't dramatic, it was warm, full of care, the kind of tone that makes you lower your guard without meaning to. For a long moment, he couldn't answer. He swallowed, looked at the ground, and finally whispered the truth. "I didn't know where else to go." Emily didn't hesitate. She stepped aside and said, "Come in." No lecture, no awkward questions, just a simple, sincere invitation. The moment he stepped into her living room, the warmth of the house wrapped around him. A small lamp glowed from the corner, giving the room a soft golden hue. A blanket rested across the couch, a book lay open on the table, and a faint scent of chamomile tea lingered in the air. Everything felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm inside his mind. "Sit," she said, already moving toward the kitchen. He heard the sound of tea being poured, the gentle clink of cups, and the quiet hum of the kettle being switched off. When she returned, she handed him a mug and sat across from him. Not too close, but close enough for him to feel her presence. He stared into the cup, still unsure how much he could say without falling apart. Emily didn't force him to talk. She simply waited with patience that made him feel safe. When he finally looked at her, she gave a small nod, as if telling him it was okay to speak. "I think I'm tired of pretending I'm fine," he admitted, surprised by how honest the words felt. "Everything's been building up, and tonight it just hit me." Emily leaned forward slightly, her brows pulled together in quiet worry. "You don't have to pretend with me," she said softly. Something in him cracked at that. Not painfully, more like a shell breaking open after being sealed for too long. He hadn't realized how much he needed someone to simply tell him he didn't have to be strong all the time. He took a slow sip of tea, letting the warmth calm his nerves. Emily watched him with a kind of attention he rarely experienced from anyone. Not because she felt obligated, but because she genuinely cared. "I didn't want to bother you," he said. "You're not bothering me," she replied instantly, and the conviction in her voice left no room for doubt. "You're important to me, Alex. I'm glad you came." Those simple words settled into his heart like a soft weight. Comfortable, surprising, and far more meaningful than she probably realized. He looked around her living room, the framed photos on the shelves, the soft blankets, the plant near the window. He had been here so many times before, yet tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like the safest place in the world. "Can I ask something?" Emily said after a moment. He nodded. "What made tonight the night you came here?" The question wasn't about curiosity. It was about understanding him better, helping him, supporting him. He could see that in her eyes, so he told the truth. "Because when everything felt overwhelming," he said quietly, "you were the only person I could think of. You always make things feel lighter." Emily's breath hitched, and for a second she looked away, almost shy. When she met his eyes again, her voice was softer. "I'm really glad you came," she repeated. But this time the words carried more emotions, something close to affection. Maybe even something deeper. The rain outside grew steady, tapping rhythmically against the windows. It gave the room a calm background sound, like nature was agreeing that this moment mattered. Alex felt his shoulders relax, felt his breathing steady, felt something inside him unclench. Emily set her cup down and reached out, resting her hand lightly on top of his. The touch was gentle, almost hesitant, but full of meaning. He didn't pull away. In fact, he felt a warmth spread through him that he hadn't expected. "Whatever you're going through," she said softly, "you don't have to face it alone. I'm here." The sincerity in her words sank deep into him. He looked at her face, the calm strength in her eyes, and saw her not just as a friend, but as someone who had been quietly holding a place in his life he never recognized. He didn't know what the moment meant yet. He didn't know what it might become. But for the first time in months, he felt something close to peace as he sat there in Emily's warm living room, hand in hers, listening to the rain soften against the glass. He realized something important. He wasn't just there because he needed comfort. He was there because it felt right. And neither of them knew where this newfound closeness would lead, but it was clear something between them had shifted and nothing would be the same after tonight. Alex Parker sat in Emily Rivers' living room, still holding the warmth of her hand. The rain outside tapped steadily against the window, but inside a quiet calm wrapped around them, soft and reassuring. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he felt like he could breathe without that constant weight pressing on his chest. The room smelled faintly of chamomile tea and the paper of the open book on the table. Familiar scents that suddenly felt comforting in a way that made the outside world disappear. He looked at Emily, studying her as she sat across from him. She seemed both delicate and strong at the same time, a contradiction that always fascinated him. Her brown eyes were calm, steady, and filled with concern, but there was something more tonight. Something deeper that Alex had never allowed himself to notice before. Her presence wasn't just comforting. It was magnetic, like the quiet pull of gravity he had been resisting without even realizing it. He swallowed hard. Talking about feelings had never been easy for him, especially romantic feelings. But tonight was different. Tonight, everything in him seemed to demand honesty. He finally admitted, almost in a whisper, "I've been thinking about who's really been there for me, and it's always been you." Emily blinked, a mixture of surprise and curiosity crossing her face. The words weren't dramatic, but they carried weight. She had always been there for him, sure. But hearing him say it aloud made the years of friendship, small gestures, and quiet understanding suddenly feel like a bridge to something new. For a moment, she didn't speak. She simply let the words sink in, her gaze holding his as if she were measuring the depth of what he meant. Alex felt his heart beating faster. But it wasn't anxiety, it was anticipation. He had spent so long pretending he didn't need more than friendship, pretending that stability and solitude were enough. But he realized tonight that he craved more. He wanted the person who made life feel lighter just by existing in it. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't ignore his feelings any longer. Emily leaned forward slightly, her fingers brushing the edge of his hand, as if confirming the connection without saying a word. "Alex," she said softly, "you don't have to say more than you're ready to. Just be here. That's enough." Her words were gentle, but they carried the kind of strength that made him feel understood in a way he hadn't felt with anyone else. He took a deep breath, letting himself be honest. "I've always cared about you," he confessed. "More than I realized. And tonight, it hit I've been hiding it from myself." Her eyes widened slightly, and for a second, her lips parted as if she wanted to say something but wasn't sure. Then she smiled, the kind of small, knowing smile that lit up her entire face. "I think I always knew, Alex," she said quietly. "I just didn't want to push you or risk what we have." Alex's chest tightened not from tension, but from something like relief and excitement wrapped together. The thought that she might feel the same way, that she had quietly cared for him too, made the room feel warmer, lighter, almost magical. He realized how many nights he had spent wondering what it would be like to confess, to be honest, and now the moment was finally here, alive and real. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that wasn't uncomfortable but full of unspoken understanding. The sound of the rain outside, steady and rhythmic, became a soothing backdrop. Alex realized how much he had missed this being truly present with someone who mattered. He wasn't thinking about work, stress, or past mistakes. He was just there, with Emily, feeling seen and safe. Emily sipped her tea slowly, then set it down on the table. She reached out again, this time letting her hand rest over his more deliberately. Not just a brush, but a deliberate gesture of connection. Alex didn't move away. He let the warmth of her touch anchor him, letting all his fears and doubts settle. "I don't know what this means yet," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to rush anything. I needed you tonight." Emily's gaze softened. "And I'm here," she said simply. "Whatever happens next, we can take it together. I've always wanted you to feel safe enough to be yourself, Alex. That's never going to change." He felt a surge of emotion that made him slightly choke on his next words. "I've been pretending I could do everything on my own," he said. "But the truth is, I don't want to. Not anymore. Not if it means I can be with you." Emily's smile deepened, and she shifted closer, her hand still holding his. "You don't have to prove anything to me," she said. "Just being honest is enough. And I want that too. I've wanted that for a long time." The moment hung between them, charged but gentle. Alex felt the weight he had carried for months begin to lift. He realized that he hadn't just come for comfort, he had come for connection, and it was more profound than he had expected. Emily wasn't just a friend tonight. She was someone who made him feel alive again. Someone whose presence healed parts of him he didn't know were broken. He leaned back slightly, letting the room's warmth and her presence sink into him. "I think I've been missing this," he admitted. "Missing us. Maybe I was too afraid to see it." Emily nodded, understanding more in that single gesture than words could convey. "Fear doesn't last forever," she said. "Sometimes it takes a moment like this to realize what really matters." The conversation slowed, but the energy between them didn't fade. It felt like a quiet promise forming, fragile but real. Neither of them knew exactly where this path would lead, but for the first time, they didn't feel afraid. They felt hopeful. They felt alive. Alex glanced at her, taking in the small details, the gentle curve of her smile, the way her eyes reflected the soft lamplight, the warmth that seemed to radiate from her. He felt drawn to her in a way that went beyond friendship, beyond comfort, beyond familiarity. He realized he wanted to explore this new feeling, whatever it might become. Emily broke the silence with a soft question. "Do you want to stay?" Alex smiled a genuine, relieved smile. "I'm not going anywhere," he replied. The simplicity of the words, the quiet confidence behind them, made the room feel complete. Outside, the rain continued, but it no longer seemed gloomy. It felt like a companion to their moment, like nature itself was acknowledging that something new, gentle, and beautiful was beginning between them as the night deepened. They continued talking slowly at first, then with a rhythm that matched the comfort of being together. They shared small stories, memories, and laughter, each word strengthening the unspoken bond between them. Alex realized how much he had missed this kind of connection, not just being with someone, but being truly understood, valued, and safe by the time the rain began to ease. The world outside had transformed into a quiet, reflective space. Inside, Alex felt a sense of clarity he hadn't known for months. The emotional heaviness that had plagued him was replaced with calm and possibility. He knew that he had crossed a threshold that night, not into romance alone, but into emotional honesty, vulnerability, and a deeper intimacy that had nothing to do with physicality but everything to do with hearts connecting. Emily watched him with a mixture of curiosity and warmth, sensing the shift within him. She had always cared for Alex, and tonight she had witnessed him open up in a way that made her heart quietly swell. She realized that their friendship had laid the foundation for something more profound, and now it had the potential to grow naturally, gently, and beautifully. Alex reached for her hand again, squeezing it lightly, and she responded, holding it as if neither of them wanted to let go. In that moment, everything else faded. The stress of life, the cold, the uncertainties. All that mattered was this small, perfect connection. Neither Alex nor Emily knew exactly what the future held. There were challenges, uncertainties, and feelings yet to be fully understood. But for the first time in a long time, Alex felt hopeful. He felt seen. He felt understood. And most importantly, he felt that he had found someone who could be more than a friend. Someone who could be a companion in life's quiet moments and storms alike. The night passed quietly, filled with conversation, laughter, and shared silence. Alex knew he had discovered something rare, a connection that wasn't about perfection, about rushing, or about solving all problems instantly. It was about being present, being honest, and allowing emotions to be shared safely. Finally, as the first signs of morning light touched the edges of her living room, Alex realized that he didn't want this night to end. And Emily, sensing the same, smiled softly. Sometimes, he thought, the person you need most isn't someone new. Sometimes it's the one who has quietly been there all along, waiting for the moment you finally see them, not just as a friend, but as someone who could mean everything. And tonight, Alex Parker had finally seen Emily Rivers in that way. It was the beginning of something new. Something fragile yet real. Something that could grow into love not rushed. Not forced, but earned through trust, honesty, and time. And as he sat there, hand in hers, listening to the quiet aftermath of the rain, he understood one simple truth. Sometimes, the person you need most has been right in front of you all along, quietly waiting for the moment you finally reach for them. That night didn't promise a perfect future. It didn't need to. It promised presence, care, honesty, and the possibility of something beautiful. And for Alex and Emily, that was more than enough.